The music stopped. Not the show's theme song, not the commercial break jingle, but something deeper. The rhythm of a television studio that had been beating steadily for 19 years suddenly skipped and fell into complete silence. Ellen DeGeneres stood frozen, her signature smile wavering as she looked into the eyes of an 85-year-old woman who had just called her by a name that wasn't hers. "Ellen, sweetheart, you came back to me." Dorothy Martinez sat in the front row, her silver hair perfectly curled, wearing a lavender cardigan that smelled of rose water and memories. Beside her, granddaughter Jessica shifted uncomfortably, knowing this moment would come but praying it wouldn't happen here, not on national television. The studio had been electric moments before. Ellen's opening monologue landed perfectly, the audience warm and responsive. Dorothy and Jessica were scheduled for the Generous Grandmothers segment about grandparents who volunteer at children's hospitals. It was supposed to be simple and safe. Ellen approached Dorothy with her usual grace, ready to hear about 40 years of reading bedtime stories to sick children. But when Dorothy looked up, something shifted in her clouded eyes, transforming a television studio into a living room 50 years ago. "I knew you'd come back," Dorothy whispered, reaching for Ellen's hand with fingers that trembled from more than age. "I've been waiting so long." Ellen felt the weight of those words settle around her shoulders. She glanced at Jessica, whose eyes brimmed with tears and apology. The granddaughter mouthed, "I'm sorry," silently, but Ellen barely noticed. She was transfixed by Dorothy's face, which had lit up with impossible joy. In the control booth, producers frantically whispered into headsets. This wasn't scripted, but Ellen made a decision that would define not just that taping, but everything she thought she knew about love, transcending time and identity. Ellen knelt beside Dorothy's chair, still holding her hand. "Hi, Mom," she said softly. The two words rippled through the studio. The audience, expecting a cheerful grandmother story, found themselves witnesses to something profound. Camera operators who had filmed thousands of celebrity interviews adjusted their lenses to capture something infinitely more precious: a daughter coming home. Dorothy's eyes filled with tears of relief. "I missed you so much, baby. After the accident, I thought I'd never see you again." Ellen's throat tightened. She knew about the accident from Jessica's pre-show interview. Dorothy's daughter, Ellen, had died in a car crash at 26. Jessica was Dorothy's granddaughter, caring for her as dementia slowly stole memories. But this memory, this moment, Dorothy held on to with perfect clarity. "I'm here now," Ellen said, her voice catching slightly. "I'm right here." Dorothy reached up and touched Ellen's face with wonder, as if confirming she was real. "You look so successful, sweetheart. I always knew you'd do important things, making people happy, just like you always said you would." The irony wasn't lost on Ellen. Here was a woman whose greatest wish was being fulfilled through a case of mistaken identity, while Ellen herself was discovering something she'd never expected, what it felt like to be someone's missing piece. "Tell me about the garden," Ellen said, surprising herself by knowing exactly what to ask. "Is it still beautiful?" Dorothy's face brightened. "Oh, Ellen, you should see the roses this year. The red ones you planted before you went away. They've grown so tall. I talk to them every morning, tell them about you." Behind them, Jessica was crying openly, but tears of gratitude rather than grief. For the first time in months, her grandmother was truly happy. The confusion and agitation of Dorothy's difficult days had been replaced by pure contentment. Ellen found herself drawn deeper into the role. "What do you tell them?" "I tell them about your laugh, how you used to dance in the kitchen while I cooked Sunday dinner." Dorothy paused, studying Ellen's face. "You still have that laugh, don't you?" Without thinking, Ellen let out a small chuckle, and Dorothy clapped her hands together with delight. "There it is! I'd know that sound anywhere." The studio audience was completely silent now, not because they were bored or uncomfortable, but because they understood they were witnessing something sacred. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was love finding a way to heal itself across impossible circumstances. Ellen noticed Dorothy's hands, spotted with age and marked by a lifetime of caring for others. She took them in her own and felt their warmth, their fragility, their strength. "Mom," Ellen said, the word feeling both foreign and familiar, "I need you to know something." Dorothy leaned closer, hanging on every word. "Everything you taught me, everything you gave me, it's all been worth it. I've spent my life trying to make people happy, just like you said I should. And every time someone smiles because of something I did, that's you. That's your love working through me." Dorothy began to cry, but they were tears of overwhelming joy. "I'm so proud of you, baby. So proud." Ellen felt something break open inside her chest. She'd made millions of people laugh over the course of her career, had won countless awards, had built an empire based on kindness and joy. But she'd never felt as important, as needed, as she did in this moment, being exactly who this woman needed her to be. "I love you, Mom," Ellen whispered, and in that moment, she meant it completely. Dorothy pulled Ellen into a hug that smelled of rose water and felt like coming home to a place she'd never been. "I love you too, sweetheart. My beautiful Ellen." The embrace lasted 30 seconds, but it felt like a lifetime. When they finally separated, Dorothy was smiling peacefully, and Ellen felt forever changed by the experience of being loved so completely by someone she'd just met. As the show resumed its normal rhythm, as Dorothy and Jessica were eventually and gently guided backstage, as the taping continued with its scheduled segments, Ellen carried something new inside her. She'd learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not correct someone's reality, but step into it with them. That love doesn't require truth to be real, and that sometimes being wrong feels more right than anything else in the world. 3 weeks later, Ellen received a call from Jessica. Dorothy had passed peacefully in her sleep, but in her final days, she'd been happier than she'd been in years. She'd told everyone at the care facility about the day she got to see her daughter Ellen again, how proud she was, how loved she felt. Ellen kept a photo from that day on her desk, not a professional shot, but a simple picture Jessica had taken with her phone. Ellen and Dorothy, holding hands, both crying and smiling at the same time. It served as a daily reminder that sometimes the most meaningful performances happen when you stop performing and start loving. The segment never aired, as originally planned. Instead, Ellen dedicated an entire show to Dorothy's story, talking about the grace of dementia patients and the importance of meeting people where they are, not where we think they should be. She'd learned that being someone's missing piece, even temporarily, even through mistaken identity, was one of the greatest privileges of her life. And sometimes, late at night in her office, Ellen would look at that photo and whisper, "I love you too, Mom," to a woman who had taught her that the most profound connections can happen in the space between who we are and who someone needs us to be. But the story didn't end with Dorothy's passing. It was just beginning. 6 months later, Ellen received an unexpected package. Inside was a worn leather journal with a note from Jessica. "Ellen, I found this in Grandma's things. I think you should have it. She wrote in it every day after meeting you." Ellen opened the journal with trembling fingers. The pages were filled with Dorothy's careful handwriting, growing shakier as weeks progressed, but always consistent. Daily letters to her daughter Ellen. "Dear Ellen," the first entry read, "Today was the most beautiful day. You came to see me, and I remembered everything so clearly. Your laugh, your kindness, the way you used to hum while doing dishes. I'm not confused anymore about what's real and what's not. You are real. Our love is real. That's all that matters." Ellen had to stop reading. The weight of what Dorothy had given her, and what she had unknowingly given Dorothy, was overwhelming. The journal entries continued for weeks. Dorothy wrote about dreams where she and Ellen cooked together, about sleeping peacefully, knowing her daughter was happy. She wrote about the roses in her memory garden, how they seemed brighter after Ellen's visit. Most heartbreakingly, she wrote about forgiveness. Ellen, I need you to know I forgive myself for not being able to save you from that accident. For 47 years I've carried that weight, but seeing you again, knowing you turned out exactly as I'd hoped, I can finally let go. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. Ellen closed the journal and made a decision that would change her show for the next week. She introduced a new segment called The Love That Remains. Instead of celebrity guests or comedy sketches, Ellen began featuring stories about people dealing with dementia, Alzheimer's, and other conditions that steal memories but can't touch love. She brought in Dr. Sarah Chen, a neurologist specializing in dementia care. What Ellen did that day, Dr. Chen explained, isn't just beautiful, it's therapeutic. When we meet dementia patients in their reality instead of forcing them into ours, we give them peace. Ellen shared Dorothy's story with Jessica's permission, and something remarkable happened. Families across America began writing to the show about their own experiences with loved ones who lived between memory and imagination. The mailroom was flooded with letters from people who had learned to step into their family members' alternate realities with love instead of correction. One letter particularly moved Ellen. It was from Maria Santos, whose husband with Alzheimer's believed he was still 25 and working as a firefighter. Instead of constantly reminding him of his age and condition, Maria had learned to ask about his workday and celebrate his imaginary rescues. He's happier than he's been in years, Maria wrote, and so am I. Ellen invited Maria and her husband to the show. When Roberto Santos walked onto the stage in the firefighter jacket Maria had bought him, Ellen didn't see a confused elderly man. She saw a hero who had spent his life saving people and deserved to feel heroic even now. Tell me about yesterday's rescue, Ellen said, kneeling beside Roberto's chair. Roberto's eyes lit up. We saved a whole family from a burning building. The little girl reminded me of my daughter when she was small. Maria squeezed Ellen's hand gratefully. Later, she would tell Ellen that Roberto hadn't mentioned their daughter, who had died in childhood. In over 2 years, Ellen's question had somehow unlocked a treasure box of love that Alzheimer's couldn't quite steal. The Love That Remains segments became the most watched parts of Ellen's show. Viewers tuned in not for laughs, but for tears, for healing, for the reminder that love transcends logic, and that sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is validate someone else's version of reality. Ellen partnered with the Alzheimer's Association to create memory gardens in nursing homes across the country. These were spaces where families could visit loved ones and explore whatever reality felt most comfortable, whether present day or 50 years past. But perhaps the most profound change was in Ellen herself. She'd always been kind, always been generous, but Dorothy had taught her something deeper, that true compassion sometimes means losing yourself in service of someone else's peace. A year after Dorothy's death, Ellen was filming a regular episode when she noticed a man in his 70s sitting in the audience, staring at her with an expression she recognized. During a commercial break, she approached him. "Robert," she asked gently, though she had no idea what his name actually was. His face broke into the same kind of joy Dorothy had shown. "Helen, my dear Helen, you look so young." Ellen didn't hesitate. She sat beside him and took his hand. "I've missed you too." His daughter, sitting nearby, began to cry. Later, she would tell Ellen that her father hadn't told his late wife's name in months, had barely responded to anyone. But for those few minutes with Ellen, he was 25 again and talking to the love of his life. These moments began happening regularly. Ellen would spot someone in her audience whose eyes held that particular mix of confusion and hope, and she would become whoever they needed: a daughter, wife, sister, friend. Each time, she felt Dorothy's spirit guiding her, reminding her that love is the most important truth. The ripple effects continued to spread. Nursing homes reported that families were visiting more often, staying longer, and approaching their loved ones with new patience and creativity. Medical schools began incorporating Dorothy's method, as it came to be known, into their training programs. Ellen established the Dorothy Martinez Foundation, dedicated to supporting families dealing with memory-related illnesses. Jessica became its first director, using her grandmother's story to help others navigate the complex landscape of love and loss with dementia. On the Foundation's website, Ellen wrote, "Dorothy taught me that sometimes the most profound gift we can give someone is to see the world through their eyes, even when that world doesn't match our own. In a society obsessed with facts and reality, she reminded me that love is the most important truth." 3 years later, Ellen was walking through one of the memory gardens when she encountered a woman about her own age, sitting alone on a bench and crying. "Are you okay?" Ellen asked. The woman looked up. "My mother is in there," she pointed to the care facility. "She doesn't remember me anymore. I don't know how to talk to her." Ellen sat down beside her. "What does she remember?" "Being young. Mostly. She thinks she's waiting for her date to pick her up for prom." Ellen smiled. "Then maybe you should tell her how beautiful she looks in her dress." The woman stared at Ellen. "But she's not wearing a dress. She's in a hospital gown." "Are you sure?" Ellen asked gently. "Because love has a way of seeing what matters most." The woman went back inside, and an hour later, she emerged with red eyes, but a peaceful expression. "She told me all about her dress," she said. "Blue taffeta with pearl buttons, and about how nervous she was that her date wouldn't like her. I told her any boy would be lucky to take her to prom." "How did that feel?" Ellen asked. "Like I gave her back her joy," the woman replied, "and maybe found some of mine too." Ellen knew Dorothy would have been proud. The legacy of their brief encounter had grown into something neither could have imagined, a movement that honored love's reality over memory's limitations. And late at night, when Ellen looked at Dorothy's photo on her desk, she no longer whispered, "I love you too, Mom," to a stranger. She said it to a teacher, a guide, a woman who had shown her that the most powerful performance of her career happened the day she stopped performing and started loving without conditions. The wrong Ellen had become exactly the right person at exactly the right moment, proving that sometimes the most beautiful mistakes are the ones that help us discover who we were always meant to be.